All. This is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from DrBeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So, bats are pretty cute little animals. And actually, if you don't disturb them, they don't bother you back. People get in trouble when they try to pick them up. And that is when the bats can act defensively. Similarly, these cute little things in the US are the most common cause of rabies, but they do not carry rabies as an asymptomatic animal, meaning they're not the carriers of rabies, but they can become rabid and they can become infected and they themselves are in trouble as well. And then if they bite someone, they can transmit. We also know about the bats from SARS-CoV-2 or coronaviruses or previous SARS-CoV-1 and MERS-CoV. MERS-CoV was from, what are these? Camels. Today we're talking about Egyptian rosette bats. These are mostly in the Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, and African region. These bats carry Marburg virus. And if you go near them, they normally are in the caves' roofs. And if you go near them and there is excretion or urine, that contains the Marburg virus. Now, Marburg virus is a hemorrhagic fever virus like Ebola. And it can spread from contact from person to person. And it is thought that it can also spread through semen from one partner to the next. Excuse me. And there is currently an outbreak of Marburg virus in Africa. So let's very quickly look at some news. So this is DrBeen.com. In the description of this video, there is a link to access DrBeen.com at a very, very reasonable price. I've been saying it for 3 months now, so it might seem not accurate, but it is accurate that our course pages are almost done. And once these are done, you would not get this price and access. The other interesting thing is, if you go to the video library and you go to any video, for example, we published this one today, you have under the video the AI system attached, and you can discuss the topic that you're watching with the AI. Now, very quickly, I wanted to make sure that the credit is given for the picture on the thumbnail of this video. This is a picture that belongs to Anton Croos, and you can check out his blog as well. Excuse me. Now, here is the Egyptian fruit bat. That is the bat that we are talking about. This is the bat that contains Marburg. So if you come across a bat here in the US and it's not an Egyptian rosette, that is not the bat we're talking about. Now, the Marburg virus outbreak, WHO has given some instructions for how to handle this. And let me just quickly give you some thoughts about this. Number one, it is the disease itself, the hemorrhagic fever. The symptoms are the patient develops fever, then the chills, then fatigue, and then patients might develop bleeding. And they can start bleeding from various orifices. They could bleed internally as well. Internal bleeding might then appear as blood in the vomitus or in stools or other parts of the body. For example, in the case of Ebola, even there is bleeding in the brain as well. The concerning thing about this infection is that the fatality rate is from 24% to 87, I believe, but in 80s. And the average fatality rate is 50%. So out of every 2 patients, on average, 1 will die. Compared to COVID and the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, this outbreak is still maintainable and containable. And the reason for that is that Marburg virus transmits from person to person via contact or via the bodily secretions or through the contaminated clothings and clothes and the things, the bedding and the furniture, etc. It does not transmit through the respiratory pathway. Because of that, it doesn't have the concept or doesn't have the potential to become as dangerous as COVID with its spread was. Another important thing is that the incubation time is short. So remember, COVID would just hide in people, and for 2-3 days, there will be no symptoms, and that would allow the COVID to just keep spreading. This virus has an incubation time of 1 to 2 days. So it makes a person sick very quickly. Because of that, the person becomes ill and bedridden and needs support. And so the contacts cannot be as many. An important thing to consider, and I want to show you this here as well, is the possibility that Marburg virus can actually be transmitted through semen. So if you see here, in women, pregnant women, placenta, amniotic fluid, and fetus. So if you said, why these tissues, why semen, why placenta, why amniotic fluid, fetus, why milk in a breastfeeding mother? These are all immune privileged sites. So Marburg virus tends to start hiding in our tissues where there is no immune surveillance. And it sits there and it replicates there. And that is why it becomes very difficult to contain it. In addition to that, there is no vaccine for this, and there is no specific treatment for this other than supportive treatment for the patient. For example, rehydration and support. Patient might need blood as well if they're bleeding. But there is no drug for it, and there is no vaccine for it. Now, because the virus hides in the immune privileged sites, that are the sites where immune system is not allowed to come in, that includes testis as well. And so when it goes to testis, then it starts appearing in the ejaculation, and that is how it can transmit from one person to another person during the sexual intercourse. So if you see here, WHO says that infected semen can cause transmission. So males of the Marburg survivors should, number one, enroll in semen testing. After their recovery, they should start testing their semen every 3 months. And 2 tests have to come back negative for them to have less protective sex. Otherwise, they should have condoms or protected sex. So this is all from here. WHO even went to the length of saying abstain from all sexual practices or observe safe sexual practices through correct and consistent condom use until their semen has twice tested undetected for Marburg virus. They also say male survivors of Marburg virus disease should practice safer sexual practices and hygiene for 12 months from onset of the symptoms or until their semen twice tests negative. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. Some literature simply says that there is a risk and a chance of Marburg appearing in ejaculation. WHO is quite thorough about this one. Now, what is the treatment? There is no treatment other than supportive treatment. So that is the one. Now, there are 2 countries right now where there is this outbreak. One is the West African country of Equatorial Guinea, and the other one is just now Tanzania in East Africa. So these are the 2 countries where there is an outbreak going on right now. However, they feel that they will be able to contain it, but we have also seen that with the COVID as well, the thought was it will be contained. Once again, I don't think it is going to transmit as fast and as silently as SARS-CoV-2 did. So this is the Marburg virus and the hemorrhagic fever disease. and there is an outbreak at this time. They're trying to contain it, and I wanted to make sure that we are aware of it. Now, continuing, there is, remember this other outbreak that we talked about. So this is the deadly fungal infection spreading at an alarming rate, CDC says. So this was the Candida auris. So Candida auris continues to increase in screening cases, that is the cases who have Candida on them without any symptoms, or even deaths, actual infections. So that is still continuing to occur here. The number of infections increased by 59% to 756 from 2019 to 2020, and then by an additional 95% to 1471. I believe at this time the screening cases are now 5,000. The important thing, should we be worried? So yes, those individuals that are in the housing facilities and are quite ill or frail or immunosuppressed or immunocompromised, or just generally their immune system isn't working very well, they are the ones that are in danger. If this, what is this, Candida auris, the fungus, comes out in the healthy community, normally it does not progress further towards symptoms and disease. However, it can still be carried by a person from one place to another place. And the fear, other than the current spread in the old houses, the other fear is that if it reaches ICUs of the hospitals, or the more intense or more severely ill patients area, whatever those areas are, surgical areas, ICUs, it can start living there like MRSA, and then it can start transmitting from patient to patient over there, or even from things to patient. So that is one fear, that it could start attacking people who are weaker when they are hospitalized. And that is where we don't want it to start living. It is not there yet. So this is the update about the Candida auris. I have done a complete video about this about a week ago. This is CDC. If you see here, these states continue to increase, plus their colors continue to change. For example, my state here, California, now has 359 clinical cases. Clinical cases are the ones that are sick. Screening cases are the ones that have Candida, but they are not sick with it. Then another update on the eye drops. Remember, there was also a spread of disease, especially the infection from eye drops. I believe these were Erzi care, something like that. And these eye drops were recalled. So FDA did an investigation, and they have on this Monday provided the report. This factory is in India. According to FDA and their report, the factory was not very sterile. So if you see here, the factory could not ensure sterility. So it was not clean. For example, in some cases, even the defect in the bottle in which the drops will be filled was inspected not through machines, but visually by holding it together or just looking at it and seeing if there is any hole or defect in it. So that was a very manual visual process, and that process can cause contamination of the bottles. So that is how bad the manufacturing process was. So the manufacturer of the eye drops, recently linked to death and injuries, lacked measures to assure sterility of its factory in India, according to US health inspectors. The company uses procedures that can't actually ensure its products are sterile, FDA said, and they labeled it as a deficient manufacturing process. And these now infections, 68 infections, 3 deaths, and 8 cases of vision loss. That is just horrible. Inspectors arrived at the plant February 20, more than 2 weeks after the announcement of the first eye drop recall on February 3. The inspection appears to be the FDA's first visit to the plant, according to the agency record, and a warning letter to the company. So, what is FDA going to do? Check this out. The report has the agency's preliminary findings and is likely to be followed by a formal report and a warning letter to the company. I think that this is just a preliminary because there are 3 people dead and there are 8 blind and 68 infected, and just a warning letter. An FDA spokesman said the inspection indicates that the company's products may be in violation of FDA's requirements. We urge consumers to stop using these products. The FDA is responsible for assuring the safety of foreign products shipped to the US, though it has long struggled to keep pace with international pharmaceutical supply chains that increasingly begin in India and China. There are some possibilities of similar vaccine injuries because of contamination, because of incorrect manufacturing process or contaminated process. FDA inspectors cited worrisome sanitary conditions at the global pharma plant, noting that its floors, walls, and ceilings were not easily cleanable. And if you see here, the inspectors also noted that the company didn't have rigorous procedures for ensuring bottles were fully sealed. Instead, a manual visual inspection is the only test to detect any leak. So you fill the bottle and make sure it is sealed so it doesn't become contaminated, and there was no process. You just look at the bottle. Global Pharma had said little publicly about its recent recalls, instead referring questions to the US companies that sold the product. So this is the update on the eye drops. And finally, one more news and then we stop. Court blocks COVID vaccine mandate for US government workers. So the appeals court rejected arguments that Biden, as the nation's chief executive, has the same authority as the CEO of a private corporation to require employees to be vaccinated. It actually just didn't make sense to me. But anyways, didn't make sense that how could our president claim to be equal or have the same authority as the CEO of private companies. So the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans rejected arguments that Biden, as the nation's chief executive, has the same authority as a CEO of a private corporation to require that employees be vaccinated. So they have rejected the ruling from the full appeals court. 16 full-time judges at the time of the case was argued reversed an earlier ruling by the 3 judges Fifth Circuit panel that had upheld the vaccination requirement. Judge Andrew Oldham, nominated to the court by then President Donald Trump, wrote the opinion for a 10-member majority. The ruling maintains the status quo for federal employee vaccination. It upholds a preliminary injunction blocking the mandate issued by a federal judge in January 2022. So I believe we all remember that. At that point, the administration said nearly 98% of covered employees had been vaccinated. So anyways, this is also an interesting point. An important thing that court has simply said that no mandates. So these are the quick discussions for today. Let's see if there is any comment. The Healthy Truth says, I just smashed the like button. Thank you very much. John says, bats carry lots and lots of diseases. That is true. Or fungus, yes. Yes, the archaeologists might want to start acting a bit more nervous when in those caves. Absolutely. Correct. So Dan is indicating fomites. Yes. So the inanimate surfaces which are contaminated are called fomites. Surfaces or inanimate things that are contaminated are fomites. It's a bad talk. Batman is cool. Absolutely. So with this, thank you very much for listening in. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if you like these works, um, uh, support them. If you would like to get access to Dr. Bean, there is a link in the description. You can also use link for Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal or Substack or Patreon, whichever you like. And if you want to become part of Dr. Bean channel as well, YouTube, you can become that. You can become a member there as well. It's just $2 or $3 on YouTube and $5 on Patreon. So just a cup of coffee or two. Roller Girl is here. Hello, how are you doing? And so with this, you're very welcome, Cynthia. Jeriel, you're very welcome. And so thank you very much, Cool Beans. Love you and all. And I would see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Actually, I will not see you tomorrow because we changed the Patreon's Zoom day from Thursday to Wednesday. So tomorrow I would have one talk at 1 p.m. for patrons and then another talk at 6 p.m. on Zoom. I have not been recording those so far because I think it just gives me extra liberty to say whatever I want to. But it seems that I might need to start recording them because many of the patrons who cannot show up at those times, they miss the talks. But anyways, if you would like it, if you are a YouTube member or Substack member or patron members, they all get the links to join. So tomorrow I'll be off because I'll be doing 2 Zoom calls and then I'll show up again on Thursday and Friday. Thank you very much and see you on Thursday. Bye for now.